I always thought betrayal would come crashing down like thunder, loud, undeniable, impossible to ignore. But the truth is it arrived quietly, like the soft hum of laughter through a half-closed door. It started on a Thursday evening. The office was hosting a small celebration for completing a major project, and my wife, Julia, had promised to be home late. She worked in marketing, a field I never quite understood, but always admired her passion for. She'd been distant lately, buried in work dinners and client meetings. I told myself it was just stress. That's what every fool in love does, believes excuses because the alternative is too painful. That night, something gnawed at me, a heaviness I couldn't name. I tried to ignore it, pouring myself a drink, flipping through channels I wasn't watching. But when I saw her purse sitting by the hallway table, left behind for the first time, I froze. Julia never forgot that bag. It was practically glued to her. I don't know what compelled me. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe I was already chasing an answer my heart dreaded to find. I opened it slowly, careful not to disturb its contents. Inside were the usual things, wallet, lipstick, keys, but at the bottom, tucked beneath her planner, was something that made my pulse stumble. My wedding ring, the one she claimed she accidentally misplaced 2 weeks ago. I'd helped her search every corner of the house for it, even turn over couch cushions, thinking she'd lost it somewhere between errands. But it wasn't lost. It was hidden, and beside it was a folded note, my handwriting staring back at me, except I hadn't written it yet. I unfolded it. The paper trembled in my hands. "Enjoy your night, Julia. I know everything." A chill ran through me. I hadn't written those words, but I might as well have, because in that moment, everything inside me began to crack. I placed the note and ring back exactly where I found them. Then I sat down in the darkened living room, the weight of silence pressing on my chest. I thought about how she'd look when she found them, her laughter fading, her hands trembling, her face draining of color. It wasn't anger that filled me. It was clarity, a calm so sharp it almost felt like peace. She came home around midnight, her perfume entering the room before she did. I could hear her laugh, still buzzing from whatever office party she'd been at. She didn't see me right away. I watched in the shadows as she kicked off her heels, humming softly, scrolling through her phone. Then she noticed her purse on the table. She froze. I could tell the exact second she saw the ring. The air shifted. Her breath caught. The phone slipped slightly in her hand. She reached into the bag, slowly, as if hoping it wasn't real. When she unfolded the note, I watched her body go still. "Mark?" she called out, her voice trembling just enough to betray her guilt. I didn't answer. She looked around, panic flickering in her eyes. "Mark." I could have stepped out then, confronted her, shouted, demanded explanations. But I didn't. Instead, I stayed quiet, let her sit in the echo of her own choices. After a long minute, she sank onto the couch, staring at the ring in her palm. I could see her shoulders trembling. That's when I realized she wasn't crying because she was caught. She was crying because she knew what was coming next. I finally stood, stepping into the dim light. Her eyes met mine, wide, red, desperate. "Mark, I can explain," she whispered. I shook my head. "You don't need to." Her lips parted as if to protest, but no words came out. She just sat there, small and broken, while I picked up my car keys from the counter. "You'll find the rest of your truth tomorrow," I said quietly. Then I walked out. The night air was cold, almost cleansing. I didn't have a plan, not yet, but I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. I'd spent years giving her everything, believing in us, trusting that love could cover every crack. But love without honesty isn't love. It's performance. As I drove through the empty streets, my mind replayed everything. The sudden overtime, the secretive texts, the late meetings. Every piece of her story that hadn't quite fit now clicked into place like shards forming a broken mirror. By the time the city lights disappeared behind me, I had decided exactly what to do next. Julia thought she could control the story, keep her lies neatly hidden behind laughter and charm. But the ring and note weren't the end. They were the beginning of her unraveling. And by morning, she would realize just how deeply I'd understood the game she'd. Julia didn't sleep that night. I knew she wouldn't. When I left the house, she was still sitting on the couch, staring at the note like it was a fuse waiting to ignite. I didn't go far, just parked near the river, engine off, phone face down, listening to the sound of water and the faint thrum of passing cars. My thoughts weren't racing. They were deliberate, methodical, almost too calm. At dawn, I returned home. The house was silent, curtains still drawn. Julia must have stayed awake. Her eyes were red when she saw me walk in. She opened her mouth to speak, but I simply walked past her and into the bedroom. I took out the small box I'd packed days earlier, documents, photos, things I'd once thought I'd never leave behind, and set it on the dresser. "Mark, please," she started, her voice breaking. "It's not what you think." I turned to face her, my tone measured. "Then tell me what it is." She froze, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. He's just a coworker. It didn't mean anything. It just happened. There it was. It just happened. The oldest lie in the book. I nodded slowly. You planned dinners, drinks, excuses. You had messages, changed passwords, started working late. That's not something that just happens. Julia, her face crumpled. I made a mistake. I love you. I was scared you didn't. Don't. I cut in, my voice quiet but sharp. You don't get to rewrite this as fear. You chose deceit. She started crying harder, reaching out to me, but I stepped back. You found my note. I said, "Good. Then you also understand that I'm done pretending." She shook her head, panic rising. "Mark, you can't just throw this away. Our life, our marriage, please, let's fix this." I looked at her, the woman I'd spent nearly a decade loving, and realized I didn't recognize her anymore. Fixing something means both people still want the same thing. You wanted excitement, adrenaline, someone who made you forget your life for a while. I wanted peace. We can't fix what we never valued the same way. She sank onto the bed, sobbing into her hands, and for a fleeting moment, I almost softened. Almost. But then I remembered every lie she'd told. Every night I'd stayed up waiting for her, believing she was just tired or overworked. That kind of betrayal doesn't just wound. It rewrites you. I left her there and walked out to the kitchen. My phone buzzed, an email notification from my lawyer. Everything was ready. The documents, the transfer of our joint accounts, the papers she'd soon have to sign. When I returned to the living room, she looked up, confused. "What's happening?" "You'll get everything you need by noon," I said. "Half the house, half the savings. I'm not here to punish you, just to end this with a dignity you didn't offer me." She stared at me, disbelief and guilt warring in her expression. "You already filed?" I nodded once. 2 weeks ago. I saw the messages. Julia, I just needed you to see yourself the way I've been forced to. Her eyes widened. You knew." "I knew." She covered her mouth, a broken sound escaping her. "Then why didn't you say anything?" "Because," I said softly, "sometimes the truth means more when people discover it on their own. That note, that ring, it wasn't revenge, it was reflection. You needed to see what you'd done without me telling you." The realization hit her like a wave. She started shaking her head, whispering, "No, no, no," over and over, like she could undo it all by denying it fast enough. But there was no undoing left. I walked to the door, feeling finality in every step. Before leaving, I paused. "I hope you find whatever you were chasing," I said. "Just don't mistake freedom for healing. They're not the same." She didn't respond, just stared, lost, as the door closed behind me. That was the last time I saw Julia. Months later, I heard through a mutual friend that she'd left her job, moved out of the city. They said she'd become quiet, withdrawn. No more loud laughter in crowded bars, no more company parties, just silence. One day, I opened my mailbox and found a small envelope with no name, no return address. Inside was my ring, the one she'd hidden, and a note written in her handwriting this time. "You were right. I finally see it now, and I'm sorry it took losing you to understand. I held it for a long moment before sliding the ring back into the envelope. I didn't keep it. I dropped it into the river that evening, watching it sink beneath the rippling surface. For the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. Not because I'd won. There are no winners in betrayal, but because I'd finally stopped fighting for someone who was never fighting for me. And somewhere, I hope Julia understood the lesson I'd learned too late. Lies don't destroy love instantly. They do it quietly, one small secret at a time, until all that's left is the echo of laughter that no longer sounds like home,